Hi, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday of a week of image sliders. Today we are going to build this full screen image slider with arrows that will click forward and backwards. I'm going to code through the HTML and then we'll switch over to the CSS and JavaScript, which I already have in place. But I want to make sure that I explain all of the divs and what they're doing and set them up individually. So I'm going to start with a div with a, um, a class of wrap, and that is going to wrap around everything. All right, so the closing div is going to go at the end, right? So everything we do is going inside this div with the class of wrap. So next I'm going to build my arrows. And that's going to be a div with the ID of arrow left and a class of arrow. All right, now I'm going to copy and paste that to get my my right arrow. So I just need to change this to right. All right, so that's my arrows. Now inside, in between, we need the images. So I'm going to create a div with a class with the, I'm sorry, ID of slider. And all of my slides are going to be inside of this, right? So this is another, basically a wrapping div. So inside that, we have a div with the actual image itself. So this div has a class of slide and a class of slide one. So each image, each slide is going to have its own class for its own individual styling. That's where we're going to get the image from. Because the image is going to come in the CSS as a background image. So inside, 1 second, let me close that div. And then inside that, we want the text. So we have a div with a class of image text. And then inside that div, we're going to put a span to hold the actual text. Let's just put in image one for now. All right, so that's it. That's our slide. And you can see, right, I already have the images in there because the CSS is already done, but you can see where the image one is showing up in the middle of our screen. So now I'm just going to take this. Where does that close? That closes there. I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it 2 more times. And I'm going to do slide 2 and slide 3 and image 2, image 3. So that is it for the HTML for now. We will go back down the road and we will, after we test it and everything works, we will add more slides with more images, but that's it for now. We're going to move over to the CSS. Okay, so now in the CSS, I'm just going to walk through this code and talk about what everything is doing. We're starting with, we have the body, we have the class of slider, which if you remember is the class that wraps around all of the images. We have the, I'm sorry, the index of the ID of slider, the class of wrap, which wraps around everything, and the um, class image text, which is this image portion. And that just, we could probably have just used the universal um, selector, but we identified the individual things. So we're just clearing out any margin and padding. We're setting a font family. We want the width to be 100% and the height is 100 VH. And we're gonna have a lesson on VH and EM coming up soon. But in the meantime, just understand that is um, the height, right? So, and then overflow X hidden just means that there won't be any vertical scroll bar, okay? Or I'm sorry, horizontal scroll bar. So wrap, position, relative, and then the class of slide, we're setting the background size to cover, position to center, and no repeat, right? So all of our slides have that class of slide. That is styling that we want on every single one of them. So we do that outside by itself. Now each individual slide needs its own background image. So we have classes slide 1, slide 2, slide 3, each with a background image, and we have Italy 1, Italy 2, Italy 3. All right, does that make sense at this point? Um, so image text is this, uh, the text we're putting on the screen, whether it's a description or a number or whatever kind of content we want to have. We're styling that where it is. Display is flex. Flex direction is column. Justify content center. Text align. I'm sorry. Align items center and text align is center. So we want it all in the middle of the screen. And I'm sorry. That's the image text is basically covering the. We're centering the span on the whole page. So the span itself. Oh, good morning. The span itself, the text we set to 5 rem and the color to white. So then we have the arrows. The arrows, as I said, we're building in the CSS. We have the class of arrow, and then we have an ID of arrow left and an ID of arrow right to separate the styling for the two of them. The class of arrow, we want the cursor to change to a pointer. The position is absolute. Top is 50%, and then we use that transform translate Y to bring it up. Because remember, if we take this out, yep, they're going to drop down. So we're going to put that back in. And then border style solid. So now on the arrow left, the border width, this is how we're going to, that's how we're changing it from a, how we're going to change it from the block to the triangle, right? So we set these different border widths. And then when we uncomment this, it will become our arrow. All right. So we want it on the left, but we want it 30 pixels from the left. And then we do the same thing on the right. And then finally, the JavaScript. So our variables are let slider images equal document dot query selector all, and it's pulling the class of slide. Let arrow equals document dot query selector. We're pulling the arrow left, and then we have the let arrow right, and we change that to arrow right. Simple copy and paste, and change your left to right, and we're going to let current equal 0. And that's the variable we're going to use to determine which image we're on and therefore which way we want to go. Function reset is just going to clear everything before we move on to the next function start slide. So first it's going to call the function reset, and then it is going to pull up the first slider image, right? So slider images, index of 0, style.display equals block. And then we have functions for sliding left and sliding right. And then we have the event listeners to identify when the arrows have been clicked. So we're adding an event listener, we're listening for a click. And when we hear that click, we're calling the function. And then at the bottom, we have our start slide, which will initiate that first function when we open the web page.